Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this is our fourth generative AI event. Today, it's going to be all around AI agents in the world of advice. Let me just run through a quick agenda. So, I'm going to give a quick welcome and a bit of an introduction into AI agents, and then I'm going to pass it on to Neal Lathia, who's going to talk about safe automation with AI agents. Neal is the CTO and co-founder of Gradient Labs. So they're doing some phenomenal stuff in the world of customer service and other kinds of areas. But previously, he was the head of machine learning at Monzo, and was also in the kind of AI team at Skyscanner as well. So he's had a great impact on all of our lives. You know, making sure we get good value for money flights whenever we go on holiday, and phenomenal banking experiences. We're then going to have a short coffee break, just to mingle, and then we're going to end with a panel, which is going to be chaired by Tim, our CPO. And once again, this time round, just like last time, we're going to have a Slido for that panel. So that's the access code for the Slido. So if you have any questions you want to submit or anything like that, whilst we're presenting, don't hesitate to kind of log into that and submit your questions as we go along. Cool, right. I'm then going to kick off with a bit of, before I kick off with the intro into AI agents, I'm just going to talk a bit about the kind of macro kind of environment we're in, where we think AI is headed in the coming years. I think 5 years is a bit bold, but I think, at least the kind of next year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, what is it that we in the AI kind of community are kind of focused on building into our thinking, building into our plans, and kind of exploring and building MVPs around? And what are the different things we're factoring in as we move forward? There's one which is around model capability. And still to this day, like even from 2.5 years ago to now, I'm still failed to be astounded every kind of 3 to 9 months as new versions of models get launched. And I think the great thing to have seen on that front is the fact that there's not just one provider of these models. There's multiple providers of these models, all competing, all with slightly different flavors. You know, if there's something you want to do where it's all really down to trust and accuracy, there's certain models you go to. If it's more around being multimodal, wanting some audio or some pictures being generated, there are other models you use. If it's more around tone of voice or speed, there are other models you factor in. It's brilliant having that kind of selection, but it's also incredible to see the rate at which these models are kind of evolving and progressing, and also the price coming down. I read a stat recently that the price of a token for ChatGPT has reduced 200-fold in the last 18 months. I mean, that is just incredible to see. The next is this move from being quite general to more specialized, right? The models that we use today, the ChatGPTs, the Claudes, they're very general. They're kind of trained on the whole body of the internet, and they're not kind of specialists in terms of their knowledge. And if you look at where we go today for help, for expert input, it is normally specialists, right? We go to a doctor, we go to a financial advisor, we go to a professor to get educated, or a teacher, or whatever it may be. That will be a huge trend in terms of how that specialization gets done. Is it fine-tuning models? Is it combining models with data sets, with certain functions? What is it that will bring that specialization and that ability into these models that are being built out? And then finally, the topic for today are these AI agents. And I think the kind of really deep, meaningful aspect of this is the fact that it's bringing AI closer to, I guess, what humans do on a day-to-day basis. The way you interact with the people, the colleagues you work with, is not by saying, okay, can you redraft this email? Can you do this? And the kind of ways we've been interacting with AI to date, you tend to give your colleagues a task, or someone in your team a task, and you allow them the autonomy of working out how to then go and do that task. And then you provide them with the trust to actually go off and do it. And I think the new paradigm we're moving in with AI agents brings us a lot closer to that. And it means that we're moving to a point where we can look at chunks of work in a far more similar way to the way we've been thinking about them in our normal course of business, in our normal daily work. And I think this is an area that a lot of the large providers of models are very much focused on now, and there are a number of components of this that I'll be covering off. And just from a few days ago, so this is like earlier this month, Sam Altman, who's the founder of OpenAI, was at the, I think it was the Deal Book conference, the New York Times conference, and he basically said agents are the thing that everyone is talking about for good reason. The idea that you can give an AI system a pretty complicated task, the kind you give to a very smart human, that takes a while to go off and do and use a bunch of tools and create something of value. So this is the big transition even people like Sam Altman are starting to talk about and to kind of explore. Okay, so I'm gonna just talk 5 to 10 minutes around just to give a bit of an introduction before pass it on to Neal. And it's quite funny. I've got two young sons. I've got a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and they're quite into the Alex Rider series of books at the moment. They're kind of, it's this 16-year-old who's a secret agent. They've also just recently watched their first Bond movies. So I work from home, I work in our living room, and they often come into the room when I'm talking about agents. So they've got a very different idea of what I'm talking about. So they come in, oh, Dad, are you getting involved with secret agents? Are you, like, and a few evenings recently I've been wearing a tux. For some of these awards dinners or Christmas parties, and then, oh yeah, Dad's becoming an agent. So you'll be glad to know I'm not becoming an agent. Daniel Craig, I think he's stepping down, but he's absolutely safe. And I will come back to Bond towards the end of this introduction talk. But I think it's important to first define what we talk about when we talk about these AI agents. They are software systems, so they are fully software-based, and they're designed to act autonomously to achieve specific goals. In terms of their characteristics, they can perceive their environment, so they can take inputs in from the environment around them. They can do this on a kind of autopilot background, always on kind of basis. They can make decisions. They essentially have a brain. So they can go and figure out what to do given these inputs, and then they can take actions to accomplish tasks. They can actually change the environment that they are present in. So just to pick into those 3 key aspects, there's one which is around autonomy. So these agents that you can create, they can operate independently once they're given a goal. They can make decisions without consistent human intervention. So this is quite different to what we're used to today with interacting with models. Right now, we provide a prompt, we get an output of that prompt, we then refine or provide another prompt and slowly work iteratively with a system, with a model, to get to the output we desire. This is very different with an AI agent because you give the end goal you want to get to, and an AI agent can essentially keep on iterating and keep on working independently until it gets there. And this brings us on to the second key aspect, which is goal-focused. So AI agents can take a broader, wider goal, a macro objective, and it can break it down into sub-goals and take the output of one of the tasks that it completes. It can take the output and have it as one of the inputs for the next task, and have all manner of reasoning involved in all of that. So this is really powerful because this is essentially the way that we're used to providing work. Ultimately, we want people around us, we want systems around us to achieve a certain goal. And this means that the way we can interact, the way we can set these AI agents up are to achieve the goals that we desire. And then finally, environment interaction. And this could be through data inputs, through sensors, through and I'm going to come to a few examples of this, or it could be in taking actions. And this is where things get really, really interesting in terms of going from AI that is really focused mostly on content generation, content inputs, data inputs, data outputs, that kind of thing, to AI that can actually do things on your behalf. And just breaking that down, so there's key components. Some people think they're kind of talk about 4 components. Some people talk about 5. I'll talk about the 5th potential one. But essentially, one of the first key components are sensors or inputs into the system. So the key thing, I guess, one needs to ask themselves when it comes to sensors or inputs are kind of what information does the agent need to do its job? Is it an email coming through? Is it like a certain change in the environment? Like what is it that that agent needs to trigger a certain behavior or trigger a certain type of goal seeking? The second is the decision-making engine. So on this front, it is how will your agent make choices? How will your agent figure out what it needs to do? How will your agent essentially reason? And this is what people generally call the first part of the brain of an AI agent. The next is the action system itself. So what actions are you going to be allowing your agent to do? How can it interact with its environment? Is it sending emails? Is it making phone calls? Like what is it? Is it moving money? Like what are those specific actions that you are going to be allowing your agent to conduct? And then the 4th is around memory and learning. So the agents can essentially take in the outputs or the changes in its environment, and then can kind of iterate and learn and react on the back of that. So essentially, the question you need to ask yourself there is how will your agent remember and how will it improve? And then there's like a 5th one that sometimes comes up, which is around control systems and safety, which Neal's going to be talking in a lot more detail. So let's think about an example here. So let's say we want to set up an AI agent that can manage kind of meeting scheduling. So what kind of sensors would this need? So there'd definitely be a sensor around kind of calendar access, because you need to know kind of what slots are free. There's email integrations, if someone kind of comes in, sends an email requesting a meeting, that kind of thing. Decision-making wise, there could be rules in place around scheduling priorities, how to resolve conflicts, potentially how to pad meetings. If there's a meeting with a certain individual or a certain team, then I want half an hour before, half an hour afterwards, that kind of thing. Ensuring that you have breaks as part of your working day, that kind of thing. There's actions. So the simple actions, I guess, for a meeting scheduler would be around sending emails or creating calendar events or moving calendar events, perhaps, inviting people to a particular scheduled event, that kind of thing. There's memory, so recording user preferences, learning from past scheduling patterns, that kind of thing, or where stuff could have gone wrong with meeting schedules, like maybe there was a meeting set up on the other side of London, someone couldn't make it, learning off the back of that. And then if there was to be a 5th kind of area around that, it could be control, safeguards, always allowing a human to accept a meeting, that kind of thing. Or having a human in the loop to make sure the meeting is not a meeting that individual does not want to attend. So that's almost like a worked example there. So yeah, I'm coming back to James Bond. Because even though he is a secret agent, perhaps the best secret agent there is, James Bond has sensors. He takes in all manner of inputs from the world around him. He's got a very intelligent brain, all around decision making, figuring out what to do, very quick with his reactions. He's got a very effective action system. And some would say he never really learns, but I guess he kind of does with certain things. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Neal to talk about safety and the sorts of controls that you can put in place. With AI agents, one of the things that we're transitioning to from AI that is very data and information based to AI that can actually do things and act, is that means that the AI can now potential, I mean, there's upside and downside to that, right? The AI being able to do stuff, to move money, to send emails, to schedule meetings on your behalf. There's a lot there that could go wrong. So as part of this transition and as part of this evolution into looking more and more at AI agents, those in the kind of AI community are focusing a lot more around safety and all the checks and balances that you need to put in place in order to make these AI agents deployable and safe. So on that, I'm going to pass to you, Neal.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Vivek and team, for inviting me down today. So yeah, I'm Neal. I'm CTO and co-founder of Gradient Labs. And our investors are just down the road from here, actually. And in a very distant past, I did my PhD also down the road from here at UCL. So at Gradient Labs, we're building an AI agent that automates complex customer support. And there's no better domain for complexity than anything starting with FinTech, especially. So right now, we're a seed stage company. We're not quite at the stage of blasting out all the logos that we're working with, but I suppose given the founding team's background, you can take an informed guess. So as Vivek was saying, AI agents are broadly this new software paradigm. And really the way that I describe it to my friends and family is that you can write something into ChatGPT and get it to give you an answer. But if you could ask it that question in 3 different ways, you'd probably overall get an even better answer. And so that's kind of the crux of what AI agents are under the hood. Just repeated calls to LLMs over and over to refine and create some sort of output for people. And the reason they are this new paradigm is not only because they enable a whole bunch of stuff that has been traditionally human to be automated, but also because we need a new way or a newer way to think about how to build these systems. And that's broadly why I'm so excited about them myself. But the age-old concern, every time we jump on a call with any company looking to join this AI agent gold rush, is safety. And in the FinTech domain, bad outcomes could mean a ton of really bad things. So losing your customers complaining and you needing to report that to the regulator, not fulfilling your obligations around vulnerability and financial difficulties, and so much more. So in a traditional e-commerce environment, you get a shitty bot and you're just going to be like, all right, whatever. But in FinTech, you get a really bad outcome with an AI agent, and it's probably going to make headlines somewhere. So in light of that, I'm just going to cover basically 4 broad points. And some of them echo some of the things that Vivek was just talking about, but I'll sort of balance between how we're looking at these challenges and then how we think about putting safety first when we're building our own AI agent. So the first one, this is inside of Gradient Labs, our design principle. What do humans do when they work on a task? And it turns out that if you were to ask someone, how do you go about, well, let's use Vivek's example. How do you go about booking a meeting with someone? They say, yeah, I'll just find the time and put it into the calendar. And then you drill one step deeper. And it turns out that humans actually do a lot of stuff without even thinking about it. They find the time, they check whether it's appropriate, they maybe look whether it's within working hours, they check what other meetings are side by side with that. And so there's just a lot of stuff that happens when we do work that we wouldn't put in some guidance document on how to do it. We would just assume that humans are smart enough to not book a meeting on a Saturday morning with a colleague in Tokyo. So LLMs aren't that smart. You have to think about them as if you had a very junior employee who is coming into your business, they would need to be told almost all of these things. So within the customer support domain, the technical formulation for a lot of these AI agents is this structure called retrieval augmented generation, usually shortened as RAG. So effectively what that means is you have these AI agents that are given a boatload of documents about your company, and what the AI agent can do is search those documents and then answer. And so I think that kind of highlighted to us, especially in the world of finance, is looking back at what humans would do. How often in the world of finance is search over documents and give a reply the right thing to do? And specifically in banking, that's actually very rare. So what are all these things that are happening implicitly under the hood? Somebody gets in touch with their bank. The agent, the human agent on the other side, is probably going to be looking at what they're saying, looking for signs of vulnerability. Is this customer trying to complain? What's the right team that they need to be connected to? Are they even clear in what they are saying? Are they talking about something that could mean two different things? I want to close my account. Well, which one? And then when it comes to actually answering, it's very rare that in a bank somebody would be given free rein to answer out of an entire knowledge base. Actually, when you get in touch with a bank, there's usually a procedure that that agent needs to follow behind the scenes. So, oh, you want a new card? Well, the first step is not to send you a card. The first step would probably be to verify your identity. Once those answers start coming out, obviously this ultimate goal being to resolve the customer's query, but then we need to factor in again that LLMs are those very, very junior employees, and they will make a fantastic range of mistakes, both general mistakes that would be wrong in any industry and specific mistakes that would be specifically wrong and even illegal within the FinTech world. So that's kind of just the starting point, which means that in order to build a customer support agent for a domain that sort of feels obvious, there's actually so much nuanced behavior that happens under the hood. And from there, we take it forward and we start actually building our agent. So before we get to the really cool stuff, what is the basic behavior that you expect of your agent? So here's an actual example that I had with a water utility company. I couldn't log in. I've never logged in or hadn't logged in months. And it called me, hi, I can't log in, right? So I'm not sort of assuming that they have an AI agent here. Maybe it's just a race condition in a system. But this is actually the first place where things can go very wrong. And so when a customer is talking to an AI agent or interacting with an AI agent, we actually need to encode how we interrupt the AI agent and make it stop when it's trying to do some work because new information has come in, or because some signal from the outside world has happened, or in a variety of cases, something hasn't happened, which is kind of a very tricky thing to reason about. So the most common in customer support being that the customer has just left. Do they still need help? Were they helped sufficiently? And that's actually the lack of signals coming from the outside world that make it a tricky thing. So yeah, this one is just a simple example, but we've seen all sorts of these race conditions that happen, even more nuanced things like the AI agent thinks they've helped the customer, they close the chat, and the customer goes, oh wait, one more thing. And the customer doesn't want to then recount everything that they just said. They want to carry on the conversation. So there's a variety of fun race conditions that happen in this space. So the way that we model it at Gradient Labs is using our principle of what would a human do. And we've actually encoded our AI agent as this kind of like state machine. And it's a little bit more complicated than this, but I thought a very simple example would help to get the concept across. That if you and I were having a conversation, I would probably be doing one of two things, hopefully. Either talking to you and trying to help you, waiting for your cues that you're finished, or I'd be listening to you. And somehow there's these transitions between these different states. So this is the way that we build our AI agent, and we think about what are the things that it's currently enabled to do. Is it waiting for the customer? Is it actually generating a reply? Is it going out and doing something for the customer? And being able to reason about an AI agent as a state machine, even though this is kind of like an age-old idea, has been very useful to overlay it with things like interrupting the agent, or with things like the customer has left, so stop burning tokens, and so on. So now we go one level deeper. The knowledge that the agent has is effectively describes the range of capabilities that it will be able to have. So we've talked again, this is kind of the first point, that one of the many first points that we talk to companies about, particularly within the world of their customer support. So we say, what sort of documents do you have? And depending on the company on the other side, sometimes they'll say, we don't have any, because most of our customer support knowledge within the company just sort of spreads by word of mouth. And as a small anecdote of that, there was a, see if I can keep it suitably anonymized, a large international company that due to regulatory reasons within one country, they needed to shut down their operations there. And so they closed that down, and then suddenly they had a surge of customer support requests of customers wanting to change their address. Which, if you had a very junior employee, they would just say, okay, I'll change your address. Okay, I'll change your address. What was actually happening was that all the customers in that jurisdiction that needed to be shut down were suddenly trying to say they didn't live there anymore. And what happened within the company was that this knowledge that that country was being shut down was being announced. It wasn't being documented. And there was just a race against customers for a long time, because what customers would do is if they got in touch with the agent who knew, the agent would say, sorry, you're not allowed to, we're shutting down our operations there. They would just get in touch again, get through to an agent who didn't know, and that agent would say, sweet, yeah, I'll change your address. And so this is actually probably the biggest institutional problem, which is that knowledge broadly within a company doesn't live in databases. The other two are a bit more nuanced. So I suppose the quick way of describing the second one is, would you feel comfortable publishing all of your company documentation onto the internet? Probably not. Would your customers be happy if they saw what your guidance is for dealing with fraudulent customers who are trying to steal money from you? Maybe not. And this is kind of reminiscent of what I was saying earlier, that we kind of take it for granted that if an employee is reading a document that says, here's how to treat customers who have been marked with a red flag, then those employees won't go and tell the customers, sorry, you've got a red flag, I can't help you, right? But an LLM might, actually. So that leads to my third and final point, that a lot of company documentation is actually not written with an AI agent in mind. And the simplest example that I've seen of that, when companies throw all their documents at an AI agent, is invariably somewhere in a document, it'll say, if the customer has this problem, they need to get in touch with us. And then the customer is talking to the AI agent and says, oh, you have that problem, please get in touch with us. And I am here, in touch with you already, is what's happening. So it ranges from the minute, frustrating interactions all the way through to arguably, cases where you could be tipping off the customer that they are under investigation, and that's breaking the law. So the way we model it at Gradient Labs is we actually have a bunch of AI agents that work behind the scenes just to prepare the knowledge. And so for the knowledge that is living in people's heads, we examine historical conversations that they've had with customers and look for repeated facts that they're saying about the company. Does my card work in France? Yes, it works in France. Do they say that 100 different times to 100 different customers, then it's probably true overall. Do they say it once to one customer? Then it might be true just for that customer. And do they say it 50 times? Well, maybe we should surface that fact as something a human can approve or decline. We also use a similar editor agent to just strip out the things from documents that would make an LLM say dumb things. And finally, in the product that we're building, we have a very clear distinction between knowledge, which is basically a set of documents and facts, and procedural guidance, which is how to resolve a particular case. So requesting a bank statement might be a good one, because if a customer is requesting a bank statement, you might need to know what time period, whether they need it signed or not, what purpose the bank statement is for. Again, you might need to verify their identity. You might need to know whether it's an electronic or a postal bank statement, and so on. So there's actually a range of questions that need to be answered before you even know what the right action is to take. So speaking of actions, that's on to the third point, which is tools. This is actually why AI agents are so exciting. In all of the previous machine learning systems that I've spent time working on, ultimately it was just the component that Vivek was mentioning of the decision engine. So is this transaction fraud? Yes. We send the yes. Is a customer looking for flights from London to New York? We find them and we ship them off elsewhere. The fact that AI agents can use tools is now bringing together the world of AI and decision-making with the actual outcomes that can be achieved. So the AI agent is saying, I think the most suitable thing for me to do now is call this API, which will send a bank statement to the customer. But I suppose, again, let's imagine you've got that junior employee. Would you give them access to all of the APIs in your company? And the answer is invariably no. So let's, again, imagine you are a food delivery company, and one of the things that the AI agent might need to know is what has the customer ordered. But would you feel okay giving an AI agent that is even 99% right access to a tool to retrieve any customer's order on your system? So the answer for that in most of the enterprise companies that we talk to is it's not a feasible thing to allow. Even 99% accuracy means that 1% of the time this AI agent might retrieve the wrong order and talk to a customer about somebody else's order, and that's just not something that we can tolerate at all. So that's sort of the first thing, and then the second thing being that if we go back into the world of banking, it's very rare for a customer support agent themselves to have permission to do everything. And so not all tools are equal. Some tools even require two humans to approve something. So I believe that would be the case if you contacted your bank and asked them to transfer a very, very high sum of money. There are known incidents in the industry where one person has just typed in a number and turned out they were typing it into the wrong field, and they typed a sort code into a amount field. And so if humans can make that mistake, it's likely AI agents could as well, and that would lead to terrible, terrible outcomes. So the final one is the more technical one. And effectively, now that we empower an agent with tools, that you get into this weird state. So let's say a simple example here being that your AI agent retrieves your account status, and it shows that you're a premium customer, and then you ask it to downgrade, so it downgrades you, and now that first tool that I called has been invalidated, actually. But the AI agent might not know that. And so you end up in a weird state where the customer has actually been downgraded, but the AI agent says, yeah, you've still got a premium account. And again, we're back into that cycle of bad outcomes. So the way we're building it is thinking around this level of safety. And so instead of just empowering AI agents with tools, we empower companies to decide which data points do they want to give to the AI agent at the beginning of a conversation. And that decision then lands in the hands of the operations people and the engineers of, is this something that we want to give, like the customer order, like the customer transactions, like their fraud status, as opposed to, is this something that we want the agent to be allowed to retrieve? And secondly, although an agent may be empowered with like 10, 15, 20 tools, while it's working on a specific case, part of the way that we build it is that it has to narrow down which tools it's even allowed to use. So broadly, we use like an intent classification system, and if you are getting in touch about your bank statement, then the tools related to your fraud status may be completely irrelevant and therefore out of bounds for the AI agent to use completely. And then, finally, it's the guardrails. So this is a mechanism that we use to guard against the mistakes that AI agents and LLMs are bound to make. So I'll color this with a few anecdotes as well, based on talking with different companies and our own experience as well. So the first one is that AI agents are notoriously great at telling you that they're going to do things and then not doing them. And so we recently heard from a company where they had their customers talking to an AI agent, and there was some problem related to travel. And the AI agent said, great, can I have your phone number? We'll call you. And the customer put in their phone number, and the AI agent said, great, we'll call you, and then closed the ticket. And the complaint from the company was that they don't do outbound calls at all. And obviously that's not documented in their corpus because they don't do it. It's a service they just don't provide. And so we've seen this time and time again, that AI agents claim they'll have done something for you when they cannot. Yeah, I've downgraded your account. Yeah, I've sent you a bank statement. Yeah, I've done this. So we really, when an AI agent makes that claim, we need it to be supported by evidence. Second one is the most popular fear when it comes to AI agents, of them making claims that are unsupported. In your documentation, this is popularly known as hallucinations. And there's actually a very tricky and gray line here. To Vivek's earlier point, these LLMs are trained on the body of the entire internet. And so they actually know a lot of things that are right and also that are outdated. And there's been this interesting tension when we build AI agents that if a customer gets in touch with you and you're a bank and they say, how do I book a flight? Then the AI agent actually, without any controls, would know how to tell the customer that. And there are like known cases of people getting in touch. I think it was, I saw it on Twitter, that people got in touch with the Amazon customer support bot and got it to generate code for them. How do I write this in Python? And it would answer. So there's actually different angles of this problem of like, is your AI agent even allowed to talk about this topic? And if it is allowed to talk about this topic, do you want it to be allowed to talk about it using its own world knowledge or just the knowledge that you've given it? And there's actually a very tricky balance there because LLMs, for example, would know how to instruct someone on how to go and cancel their Amazon Prime account just from crawling, having been trained on the entire internet. But maybe when that customer gets in touch with you, you don't want the AI agent to say, it should say, I don't know. Finally, there's the element that is near and dear to our heart, which is the FinTech industry. And again, it's easy to describe this with an example of, may I have a bank statement? Yeah, sure. may I have a bank statement because I'm being kicked out of my house, right? Yeah, sure is not the right thing to do anymore. And so in banks, if you're displaying signs of financial vulnerability where becoming homeless is one of them, then even if the AI agent told you the right thing, here's how to get a bank statement, or I've sent you a bank statement, then it's done the wrong thing. And so this is where it ranges from things that LLMs get wrong in general for any industry, all the way through to how it can be wrong specifically in the FinTech world. So the way we approach this is thinking that no outcome is better than a best effort one. And this is where we are a little bit loud about, even though we're a co-founding team of data scientists, effectively, that we think that the numbers are hiding these bad outcomes, where there are AI agents out there that say, we do 80–90% of your work, but somewhere in that 90%, there's those really bad problems happening. So instead, our focus is on enabling companies to explicitly disallow certain topics from being spoken to, and take it one step further and route those customers to the right team. And then we add in a bunch of different configurable guardrails, specifically vulnerability and financial difficulties, complaint intents, tipping off, all these sort of things that are so meaningful for the world of finance. Ironically, to the title of this event, right now, financial advice is one of the ones that is very out of bounds for AI agents. And actually, we guard against it. And so if a customer says, how do should I open a premium account? Then the AI agent says, well, here's all the benefits of a premium account, but it's on you to decide. So right now, we're still not there yet of where Sam Altman preaches about having a very super smart employee. We still think those employees are quite junior and they need to be course corrected, even to the extent of stopping them in their tracks and saying, okay, you can no longer help this customer, let's send them to the right place. So that's the Whirlwind Tour. And one of the last things is that at Gradient Labs, we've been tracking how often people thank our AI agent, actually. Because that's kind of the ultimate sign that, that things are going well. It seems very counterintuitive. Most of customer support bot interactions are mired with frustration. And so the first time that someone said, you've been amazing, or please send me that CSAT survey, we started tracking that as the true sign of success, that someone has been so pleased with the outcome that they even want to say thank you to a software system. So that's my talk for today. Thanks so much for coming, and I'll be around for the whole event if you have any questions.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Tim Elder, CPO here at Multiply. I'm very excited today to be moderating this panel with a truly excellent panel, and we're going to be talking about AI agents and how they might be transforming financial advice and FinTech more broadly. In terms of how that looks, we've got until 10:45 or so to get through various areas that we're interested in. We're going to be talking about why or why not we want to be looking at applying AI agents into this space, how adoption might look from today out into the future, the challenges and opportunities, and then we want to hear about the perspectives of clients, firms, investors, and regulators. We're also going to talk about ethics as well. We're going to talk about if there are any ethical considerations. One thing to note is that we have Slido, which was mentioned previously. I would encourage you to go to slido.com and put in that code. And the way Slido works is you can ask questions and you can vote on questions. So that's quite exciting. You'll see the most popular questions will bubble up to the top, and we will make sure that those questions get floated with the panel. So it should be quite exciting. Speaking of said excellent panel, if we go and do intros, obviously maybe Neal, you want to reintroduce yourself again very briefly with a mouthful of cookie?
Hi, I'm still Neal.
Thank you, Neil.
Hi, I'm Neal. It's lovely to meet you all. I'm an investor at Dawn Capital. We are investing into B2B software across Europe. Most of our companies, we're sort of investing at A to B, somewhere 10 to 50 million. And we tend to take a lot of those businesses and those European founders to the US as well. So this is one of our value props. AI agents has been the topic across the VC landscape. And finally, we actually had a panel with the co-founder of Neal at our office a few months back and co-authored an article around the evolution of AI agents. So very, very glad to be here. And yeah, here's some interesting talks.
Thank you very much. Matt.
Hi, Matthew Pollard. I've got a background in wealth management, accountancy, and specialising in data for those. And so, yeah, that's my piece in terms of looking at how that fits into that kind of financial advice space in particular.
And hello, everybody. I'm Mike. I am co-founder and CTO of Multiply. I don't know whether how much people know the history of our company, but we started kind of with the previous AI wave, and it's nice to have managed to stay around to this newest AI wave. But I think my responsibility is basically all things tech at Multiply, including all of our AI technology.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, let's kick off with a pretty general question, and I might put this to Matthew first, maybe. Why might we look to use AI agents in financial advice in general? Is there anything in particular top of mind that you'd want to talk about?
Well, there's a couple of things immediately that spring to mind. The first one is that with people relying on news we don't really have the kind of capacity for all people who've now got access to a pension in a way they wouldn't have done a few years ago to gain appropriate advice for it. So they are looking for advice, or they're being signposted towards advice. And yet we don't really have that capacity in most organizations to provide that advice to them with the size of pension pots involved, particularly profitably. So we're looking for something that's more efficient than having a large workforce do it in particular, to be able to provide the same kind of quality advice, something that will tick all the regulators' boxes, but without the same kind of price tag. And obviously at the moment AI is very expensive, but as it develops, as it becomes more popular, it's going to be much, much cheaper to be able to implement that. So there's a bit of work to get there first, but it's that space where, it might be fine if you've got a pension pot with 500,000, fine. There's something there to keep an advisor going every year, perhaps. Anything above that, wonderful. But if you're sitting in that kind of 100, 150,000 pot, especially by the time tax-free cash come out of it, is there enough really for a financial advisor to make sufficient profit to be interested in you if they rely on people to do everything?
Go for it, Mike. Anything to add? Are you happy with that summary?
No, I think it's exactly right. There's an increasing need for people to actually get advice, and the industry can't support that. I think also it's getting more expensive to serve those higher up. There's more onus on things like consumer duty, to actually look after your clients year on year. Not just have a kind of perfunctory advice review, but to demonstrate that you're constantly providing value. And that's exactly the sorts of things which I think AI can really help. So it's absolutely about bringing down the cost to serve people, but also there's a massive need and a massive gap that currently isn't being served.
Cheers, Mike. And Niels, from an investor perspective, do you see other opportunities beyond financial advice and FinTech more generally?
I think looking at the problem, or what's the underlying problem, first principle, it's that we don't have enough time to serve all of customers, right? I mean, if we think about it, people in the room that are in that job, they probably know that 50% of their time they're spending with quite repetitive, mundane tasks where they're having the typing, I love to call it the typing factor, typing away, doing something that could be automated away. And AI agents will help across a variety of your back office tasks or of your front office tasks to make them more efficient. And that's where we see tooling like Gradient Labs coming in when it's around customer success, engaging with your customers, like 11x that are really around outbound and making sure that you have an efficient go-to-market, but also in the back office where you think about accounting, where you're thinking about having complex processes that now all of a sudden you can democratize away with AI agents. And I think that's the interesting perspective, more in general, taking this outside of financial advice to think about service business or like lines where you have a lot of knowledge workers. And how can you make sure that you make their day-to-day more efficient, and have them spend time with their customers, high quality time, instead of spending time with repetitive tasks.
Great. And I guess like maybe to Neal then, like the interaction you're seeing with humans and these agent systems, are we talking about, front office, back office here with humans interacting with these agents? Is it changing how they're working in that regard, or how else do we see that?
Yeah, there's 2 patterns out there. And at Gradient Labs, we're taking a very strong stance on one of them. So the first pattern is to use agents as a co-pilot. And so that means that the AI's job is to nudge the human to do the right thing. To Niels's point, I don't think that really reduces any meaningful typing time. It's just an extra box that's telling you that you're doing the wrong thing. And the other side of the coin is AI agents that do the work. And it's the human's job to steer it and to make sure that it's doing the right thing. And so in that sense, the new knowledge work is the knowledge work of steering an AI agent as opposed to being steered by one. And that's kind of one of the main things that we think about when building our product, in terms of the knowledge work moves from doing the actual work to being the manager, so to speak, of the work, reviewing, quality assurance, identifying issues, fixing them. And in that sense, one human can do arguably the work of hundreds otherwise.
Awesome. Well, maybe a question then to Matt off the back of that is whether do you see that being rolled out to wealth and advice firms without much resistance, or do you think there's something that needs to happen there to enable that type of transformation?
I think the first thing is an education piece, because people running organizations like that are busy. We were just talking about this, that actually very often wealth management firms are run by practitioners, and those practitioners still have clients. So they have very limited time on top of looking after those clients to spend focusing on the business and where to take the business, etc. And then on top of that, they've got to learn about emerging technology. They've got to learn about things that again, they've got lots of different hype. They're hearing good stories, they're hearing bad stories. Which direction are they going to go in? So I think we will see it, but we'll see it, I think, start with the organizations who are prepared to trial it, who are prepared to let someone in the organization run it, see what happens, and then it's going to be a question of kind of domino effect of, well, these firms are doing it, it is working, they're talking about it, they're saying how wonderful it is, and therefore their networks of people they trust. But the question is, it's where each domino falls on that. It's just that question of when it gets to each firm and how quickly that spreads. But I think the ones who go all in straight away, try to do something without thinking it through, are going to struggle. They're going to be very disappointed, and they're probably going to have a knee-jerk back to what they were doing before. The ones who are prepared to trial it, prepared to learn those new skills that Neal's talking about, to coach it, to manage it, and then roll it out efficiently, are probably going to do really well with it.
Great, yeah. Well, to that point then, I suppose the next question is, what could be a good practical first step for a firm that is hesitant, or what's the right way to start with this? Or maybe, I don't know, Mike, do you want to have a... Sorry to give you a big question.
Well, it's a slightly loaded question, given that Multiply is an AI company that provides services. No, I think with AI agents, I think for us, exposing these things to customers adds an awful lot more risk in terms of managing the guardrails, in terms of managing the customer input, in terms of regulatory challenges. And a lot of that is bypassed by initial adoption for kind of back-end processes, where that the people who are entering information into these agents are at least on your payroll. They have responsibilities. They have a role within your organization. And I think that while there's a lot of kind of really exciting demos of kind of user-facing chatbots, actually a lot of the big take up initially is going to be on the back end, where stuff isn't going directly out to customers; it's going through a filter, and where you have, I guess, humans in the loop to manage and pick up mistakes as they happen. I think over time, guardrails are going to get better. We're going to get more of a sense of the areas of risk. At the moment, obviously, we can stand up and we can point to all these examples Neal did earlier of different kinds of hallucinations and confabulation and the way that those have problems. But what I think is really missing is quantifiably, what is the monetary risk to a business, therefore, of having one of these things as a chatbot? Like, how much are you risking? What are the areas of what is your kind of exposure? And that's something that we won't really have until we have, I think, bulk data on real user interactions and a sense of the performance of the guardrails at scale. So yeah, I think backend will be first. In fact, it's already, there's a lot of tools already out there. And gradually, as we improve the technology, I think we'll see more and more consumer uses. But I wouldn't expect companies to rush to those, given the challenges.
And maybe Neal, about practical first steps more broadly. Do you have a take on what you see people doing first with this type of technology?
Yeah, I am a big fan of the banking mindset when it comes to risk. So broadly, risk is the likelihood of something bad happening times the impact of that bad thing happening. And so clearly within that simple equation, there's a way of navigating risk-based decision-making. And so effectively, those two things combined, what is the likelihood of a bad thing happening if we automate this back office procedure, this type of conversation, this sort of task, times the impact of that bad thing happening. And that's sort of how we've used it to pave our way into working with financial institutions, where the wide range of things that they do behind the scenes are all governed by this principle. So enable your AI agent to answer basic questions about the customer's account, and then enable it to transfer it suitably to the right team, and then enable it to actually automate that team's work, and then enable it. So there's this journey, and we take this sort of high-touch onboarding process with our customers to educate them about this and help them understand how to manage these risks. But ultimately, it's when they see those low-risk things just getting fully automated, and then they see the high-risk things getting partially automated, it becomes very clear for them, okay, here's the next step that we need to take. So I suppose to other points about like the cost specifically of doing this, it's almost like if you tear off this facade of software that we have with all these apps, under the hood, most companies have armies of people doing very boring work over and over and over and over again, maybe not even to always the quality that is expected. So just recently we ran a specific trial with 3 companies, and we were looking at how customers rate our outcomes. And we could look at it in 3 dimensions. Customers just talking to humans, customers talking to our AI agent, who then decides to send them off to a human, and then customers just talking to our AI agent. And that ordering was the same for customer satisfaction as well. When the AI agent was able to do things end to end, we were looking at like more than 90% satisfaction scores. When it was just humans doing it, sometimes it's as low as 60, 50%.
Just want to pick up on one of those points, because I think I absolutely agree that kind of finance is obviously really well suited to bounding kind of risk problems and assigning a sum of money to them. That's after all, what most of the insurance companies and pensions companies are about. But it really illustrates the challenge of something like financial advice. Because let's say you're using AI to do something like fraud detection, you have some fraudulent transaction, you want an understanding of whether it's fraudulent. It's relatively straightforward to potentially bound what your risk exposure is there, right? You've got some transaction, and if you let it go ahead and it's fraudulent, you've got a number that tells you how much is potentially at stake. Real challenge for financial advice companies is, let's say you put some unsuitable advice, your chatbot or whatever, your customer facing experience puts out some unsuitable advice regarding a pension, it's much harder to bound exactly what your risk is there. You know, if you make it could be relatively minor. You know, it could be the difference between an inappropriate fund and an appropriate fund. You know, obviously that scales over a long term, but it could also be you know, the risk of recommending an irreversible decision. You know, the regulator's obviously very sensitive to things like DB pensions and things like that, and it's a lot harder to put in place that kind of I guess expected risk or expected exposure. So yeah, I think it's absolutely the right way to go, but obviously some problems are going to be much more tractable than others when it comes to that.
Well, maybe this is a good one. So yeah, go for it, Matthew.
I was just going to add to that. It's exactly the right point, but this is where the supervision piece comes in. And you keep talking about the new kid, the new employee. Well, that's exactly what it is. If a financial planner, a paraplanner joins a wealth management firm, an advisor is then responsible for that advice. On day one, they might be qualified, they might have the job title, but the chances are that their work is being watched, that they're not allowed to send that advice to the client until someone who is allowed to sign it off within the business has said, yes, that's fine. And then sometimes there'll be particularly risky areas of advice, DB pensions you mentioned, where it might have to go to the compliance director to sign off even a partner's advice. So we already solve those sorts of problems within businesses today when people are doing it. And you said, what would people do? So follow the same principles. It's just that supervision piece.
Well, maybe a follow-up question in for you, Matthew, from Slido, which is just to make sure that is what we're saying addressing this question here, which says, what mechanisms should be in place for AI and organisations to, quote-unquote, own their mistakes, ensuring safety beyond just doing things right the first time? And that's from Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. That's all you are. What you just said, do you think that addresses that, or are other mechanisms that we should be talking about?
I think we all need to learn more about how the technology works and how it learns. So I think if you think about a person coming in at that new advisor, you look at what they produce and you review it, and then what you do is you give them feedback. So one of the things we need to look at with this technology is, how do we give it that feedback? Is it just a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the whole solution? Or are we saying, actually, it was exactly the right thing to advise, but that was a really rubbishly written letter? So they're two very different things. You don't want to tell it that it's bad advice. It's very good advice. It just did a shoddy work of putting that advice to the client. So you've got to make sure that you understand how you train it. And also you've got to have those checks in place. So if AI is going to learn from someone saying, yes, that's the right thing to do, well, that trainee advisor or that new advisor says, yes, it's the right thing to do, but someone more experienced looking over their shoulder before it goes to the client then says, no, it isn't. You don't want it to have learnt from that first one and have tend to unlearn it. You want it to be overridden, so its memory is corrected in those circumstances. So there's a lot of stuff that you need to think about how you would do it with, again, with people. Exactly the same principles apply. If that advisor producing advice is going to learn from the compliance director going, then you need the computer to learn from that as well. But likewise, you need it to learn when it's a good thing and why it's a good thing, broken down into a few more parts. You know, you don't just write X on someone's work. You tell them why it needs looking at again.
Thanks, Matthew. Anyone want to add onto that, or?
I think just more generally, the one thing is they should be governed as individuals are, but equally there is sort of a EU Safety AI Act, which there's a lot of governance that is currently coming into place to just make sure that those models are behaving in the right way and are governed in the right way. I think from an investor perspective, it's actually quite interesting to see the whole infrastructure and how many new technologies are being put into place specific for AI. So in the LLM ops pipeline, it's from pre-production where you have red teaming on models, post-production where you have prompt injection, firewalls in place, where you have sort of monitoring in place and governance in place. And that's where we see a lot of interesting companies coming up. But bottom line, what we just observe when we speak to execs is less than 20% of models and applications are actually being put into production. So there's still massive hesitance because of exactly that fact. You don't want to expose your agent that you've built internally yet to your customer. Perhaps because we've all seen the DPD case where the agent was swearing at the customer, or Air Canada, where all of a sudden the customer was able to book business and first class tickets by getting money refunded. All those sort of things is what people are still worried. But there's more and more technology being put into place, and or out of the box technology that you can buy, where you can rest assured that technology will be governed.
Awesome. Anyway, I guess like as a kind of to zoom out a bit into like broader theme of like adoption, I think maybe a question for Neal and a question for yourself, Niels. So Neal, first you mentioned kind of it being quite high touch to onboard people at the moment. Is that something you see being true for a long period of time, or do you see it becoming more off the shelf as time goes on?
I think right now it's quite high touch because of the education piece. And so teaching someone how to think about working and plugging into an AI agent. So it's high touch for us, not because of any sort of technical integration or anything like that. That's just classical software, and it's a one-click experience as much as we can have it. So it's more about managing the company's risk appetite and paving the way with them. So over time, well, I'm in two minds. I hope that over time it becomes easier. Right now, to the point from the other side of the panel, we have seen it a few times that there's an urge and a rush to adopt these things, and then small sign of mistakes and a rush backwards. And so we're sort of in this critical time period of this technology's adoption where mistakes can cost us as an industry dearly because it sets us back. And everyone, like now is worried about their brand being the next headline for an AI mistake.
I guess the question then to Niels is, do you see like a difference in adoption in certain sectors, like obviously financial advice, but in FinTech more broadly, or any other sector that comes to mind?
Yeah, I was just about to talk about that because there was a question actually up there saying that I think financial advisors are very, what was it? Something like old school institutions. I think there's a lot of different ways of why companies or in industries people are adopting. And I think currently what we see is legal, for instance. It's an industry where people are adopting massively. And why is that? Because it's extremely rule-based, and people actually know, is it a fact, is it true or not? There's some other industries where people are adopting a little bit less. But I think outside of just industry by industries, it's more around the use cases that you see adoption for, rather than just saying this is an industry that likes AI agents or not, or this is an industry that's sleepy. Legal is probably the most sleepy industry you would think of, and it's one of the industries that is most adopting the use cases, as they are very fit for purpose, essentially.
And just to break that down, when you say they're fit for purpose, you're saying it's because
it's very rule-based. You can sort of use it in your day-to-day. You can essentially cut down time massively. I just spoke to a non-executive advisor that is also advising on a legal side, and he said, typically I prepare 6 hours, and now it took me 15 minutes, and I actually know that those paragraphs are correct. So that's just a massive improvement, right?
And the cost of that person's time is going to be?
It's going to be a massive impact, bottom line. And I think you see that all of those, with ChatGPT and sort of the sensibilization of AI, people are using it on a day-to-day basis. All of us in this room will have used Chat or Claude or some form of AI at this point, right? We just don't necessarily know how we are going to bring this into our work life and our day-to-day and into our processes that we are running. Some of us will have a window open with Chat or Claude and will prompt, but it's not necessarily integrated into the day-to-day use case or into some processes that we're running. And I think that step is the important step. That's why sort of it's always important. And the hard bit is to translate those requirements, those human use case, business-specific requirements into software requirements or agent requirements. I think that is the bit that is going to be the real deal that needs to be broken down in the next couple of years.
Awesome. Cheers, Niels. Right, I might take another question from Slido. given that we've been talking about stuff in the back office and front office, and whether it's facing internal team members or facing customers, so I'll take this one from Chris Hudson. Will the evolution of LLMs mean that the general public will begin to trust them more for complex tasks, including financial advice? And I guess the implicit piece there is the idea of maybe there's not been trust in the past, and people have seen like examples that Neal has shown where someone's been called a silly name or something that's not been understood. But Matthew, do you have a take on this in terms of trust and end customers and clients and the experience?
I think that, yeah, certainly people becoming more aware and playing with them, as it were, in day-to-day life will come up. It'll probably take a little while for them to trust it for a couple of reasons. The first one is someone sent me an amazing, I'm a sailor, I teach people to skip a yacht, and I saw a photo someone sent me once which had this yacht racing, absolutely wonderful. But if you looked at the water, the wind was coming from completely the opposite direction from where the sails were. There was no tiller or wheel, so you couldn't steer the thing. And the racers who were trying to keep the boat upright were sitting somewhere over a wave a few feet away from the boat. So there will be cases where we expect too much of it and where things upset. Now, RAG, which Neal talked about earlier, where you allow an LLM to look at specific information from your organization, from your industry, etc., helps. So the idea that, for example, in professional services, you tend to use the word client very often rather than customer or whatever. That's one example. So you'd see the word client will appear an awful lot in that documentation, but it won't necessarily form quite such a high percentage of things out in kind of general consensus. So a lot of the time it's about finding the specific words as well. Certain words mean certain things in certain industries. So ChatGTP on its own, going in, typing, say, write me a letter for this, there's going to be a certain amount of work to amend it to make it industry specific. But where technology providers are using those same models, are able to use all of that hard work, but allow it to access information that's specific to an industry, that will start to improve trust. So yes, I think the public will start to trust it more, but I think only where specific tools come out to do it. Because if you ask for something, I mean, there was one point where if you'd have asked ChatGTP who owns Tesco, it would have come out with my brother. So obviously there is a point at which there's so much information that's available to these LLMs in general use that you just cannot rely on. So it's about making it specific, which is what Vivek started with earlier today.
If I may just add, I think super interesting question. LLMs will evolve over time. Financial advice is complex in itself. And if we think about the use case, I know a lot of my friends that are actually typing into Chat or Claude, what does this and this and this and this mean? People will use it for education as a natural use case to break down this complexity and understand what this plethora of information actually means for them. And I think that's quite helpful for them. And again, it's probably quite rule-based in that sense, because there's this product and this product does this, and the LLMs have been fed the product information over time and have sort of seen how those financial instruments work. So in that perspective, I think that people will use it quite frequently. But then the financial advice tailored to your own risk appetite, tailored to your own financial situation, I think it needs more context about you as an individual. So then the question is, how can, again, startups, companies in the space tailor that and combine those two things with whatever RAG, or just applying as much context as you can on top of those models?
Yeah, my perspective on this is probably driven by the fact that when we were a B2C company and we offered financial advice to customers, it wasn't LLM powered then. It was much more deterministic. So in some senses, I guess it was a lot maybe more trustworthy than current approaches, which have things like hallucinations and things like that in. And we offered the customers the opportunity to call a real human at the other end of the line. And the most common thing that those customers who took up that service wanted wasn't really any more information than what we provided them digitally. What they wanted was reassurance and a sense from a real person that they were actually making the right decisions. And I think financial advice, legal advice, Similar to health advice, right? You can go on online, you can find more information than ever about what's probably wrong with you based on your symptoms. But doctors are actually seeing a human doctor is probably more popular than ever because there's a lot more about that process than just the information. And I think financial advice is very, very similar. You're making big, long-term decisions. Typically, the people making those decisions are not super financially literate, or certainly not as literate as people who work in the industry, maybe. And these are decisions that they can't necessarily roll back. You're making decisions about your pensions. You can't shop around in the way that you might for products when you're grocery shopping or something. So you look for signals, you look for comfort, you look for the kind of social interactions that we have when we deal with every day to help you believe that you're making the right decision. And however good the LLMs get, I don't, even with AI avatars and the like, I think that they are still missing a lot of what makes those kind of interactions work. A lot of what makes those interactions, more realistic. Maybe they'll get there, but those of us who've been to previous talks that we've been, I think I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that we're going to get there anytime soon. I think there's an awful lot that, just seeing someone in person, just having a realistic interaction with somebody, where you can kind of, sense check the decisions you're making, is hugely powerful. So basically what I think is LLMs are going to be able to do everything that financial advisors currently do in terms of the financial side of things, in terms of the modeling and producing a financial plan, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be replacing the human experience completely. And in fact, I'm pretty convinced that they won't anytime soon.
Maybe this is a good kind of follow-on question when we start talking beyond just trust and the kind of experience changing over time. Question from Johnny Stubbs. Robo-advice fell short of its promises years ago. Could agentic AI overcome those issues and finally deliver on the potential of robo-advice this time around? So I guess the theme there being like the experience that customers are having. Could agentic AI help deliver on that? I don't know if anyone wants to take.
There was a similar trend in the customer support domain, where these bots have been around for a decade at least, and they've gone through several iterations. The first one being the very rule-based, deterministic, go from this box to this box to this box approach, and they broadly fell over because they weren't manageable for companies. They still aren't, and also they just create extremely frustrating customer experiences where people have to fit into the box and follow the arrow. Then in 2017, 2018, the first language models like BERT came out, but they weren't like the models that we have today, and you still had to work quite a lot with them. And at Monzo, we built a first version of an AI bot using that back then. But really, all it was doing was trying to figure out what this customer wants and then send them a canned reply off of the back of it to guide them towards self-service. So it was very limited technologically, and it was limited to you ask a question, it better be a fully formed question, and it gives you a canned reply. Some companies saw some great success from that, but by great success, we mean going from 0 to 10%, not from 0 to 90%. And so this is where AI of today is now the new thing and does hold this promise, because you're no longer constrained to forcing customers through deterministic workflows. You can have an AI agent that sometimes is following a procedure, but can also answer side questions, can also do this, can also do that. It just sounds much more human. So yeah, when it comes to advice, obviously that's less of my domain, but specifically also related to the previous question, I don't think it's just about overcoming what it couldn't do before, but also giving access. So right now, from a company perspective, it's do I deploy technology or do I hire a bunch of humans? From a customer perspective, it's like, do I have access to advice, yes or no? And to the earlier points, if a customer is a student, then they're probably not financially viable to even take on as a customer. So the actual answer for most people is they don't have access to the service, period. This goes all the way up through to what we see today, where you can reason about this choice yourself. Would you rather talk to an AI agent that is 99% accurate, that will answer you within minutes or seconds, or wait for 2 weeks to see a doctor, for 2 to 3 hours to speak to a human on the other side of a bank, and so on? So I think really there's a strong element of actually democratizing access to these services altogether, and the fact that the technology is now so much more powerful. I mean, I founded a company in this a year ago, so I will be an optimist by definition.
Yeah, my take on robo-advice is that I don't think the reason it fell short of its promises was necessarily that the technology wasn't there. I think the challenge, and we faced this challenge when we were automating financial advice, and literally our initial goal was trying to go well beyond what robo-advice the traditional players did. And I guess we had this glib line that robo-advice was neither robo nor advice, because essentially it wasn't. It was about putting people into predefined buckets and investing them along those lines. But the challenge, as soon as you go beyond that, is the organization has to make all sorts of decisions. It has to start making a whole bunch of kind of micro decisions in what it means to automate advice. What data do you collect? What decisions do you make? How does that decision tree look? What are the different routes that customers are going through? Is every route the customer goes through compliant? Have you got everything you need in place? All of these micro decisions, each one of those is kind of something that a lot of these companies can deal with. But as a whole, particularly if you're a massive organization where it's not one person making those decisions, it's a committee, and you have to get a meeting for someone from compliance, someone from advice, someone from the kind of customer facing side of things. Organizations just really struggle to make those decisions. And with generative AI, those decisions are still being made. I think it's just a kind of it's a prepackaged way of having a bunch of those decisions already made for you, and maybe you just look at the outputs and say whether you like those. I don't actually think that's necessarily that much more technologically. It's necessarily going to help organizations solve the problem of automated advice on its own. But I do think that it helps. I think it provides a different solution to a bunch of different problems. And I think also we're just seeing there's a long tail. I think anyone who's at a meeting like this where you're keeping up with latest technology, it's easy to kind of forget that actually we're still seeing in a bunch of the financial institutions we work with, now at this point, 20-year-old technologies, sort of APIs, being built and being available that we just take for granted, and that long tail of progress that really was maybe you can trace back to the start of the internet or cloud computing, which made a lot of these things a lot more easy for businesses. We're still very much in that kind of process. So I'm optimistic that we can automate advice. I'm CTO of an automated advice company, and we think we can do it. But I don't necessarily think that Gen AI is the kind of panacea. I think it's one part of the puzzle, and the bigger part is actually just slightly boringly slow institutional progress. People in these businesses feeling comfortable to take risks, and I guess competitive pressure from other companies offering better products that you have to compete with.
Cheers, Mike. Right, so time is flying. I'm going to jump us onto the last section or last topic, which is actually around the ethics and the ethical side of AI agents. I suppose the most basic question up for grabs for everyone is, are there kind of ethical aspects that we should be considering, or are there ethical aspects that you see customers raising? Does anyone want to take that? Go for
I
Nils.
think I'll pass that to the experts that are actually building the field and speaking to customers.
Go for it, Matthew. Sorry, it's a hot potato.
Quite frank.
Well, I think the key really is that we are still talking about the same point made originally, that this is a new employee. So if you always go back to that, you always go back to the fact that this is a person. Now, I would argue that you don't need to be a neuroscientist and a psychologist with decades of experience in order to line manage a person. So what's the difference with this? It's just that the skills for doing it are slightly different. The main thing really is it's about why you're implementing it, what you're aiming to do, and is your priority literally to get everybody through something, invested, make some money on them, almost blow the consequences, or is your aim to refine a process, make it more efficient, etc. And are you considering all those points about what can go wrong? How likely is it to go wrong? So as long as you're taking a sensible risk-based approach and you are thinking about what it can hurt, and at the end of the day, as you said, this is talking about people making decisions that could affect the rest of their lives, potentially inheritance for their offspring and their offspring. You know, we could be talking about something that could have an impact for 200-300 years. No, it sounds silly, but it could be 200-300 years off the back of a bad piece of advice. Could be a difference in how much money's involved. So as long as you are thinking about the same sorts of points you would if a human were doing it, how are you rewarding it? It doesn't come into it in the same way, but how are you rewarding the people who are supervising it? How are you rewarding the people running the organization who are supervising the people who are supervising it? All those things still come in. So ethically, it's all about motivation and supervision, I would say. Why are you doing it, and how are you making sure that the outcome is going to be good for the person ultimately at the other end of it?
Yeah, I think the great thing about financial advice as opposed to some other areas in finance is that I think when you provide a great service, it can genuinely be win-win, you know, for the advisor and for the customer. You know, things like credit and things like that. There can be a lot more tension, I think, between what the company wants and what the customer wants. But that said, I think, you know, we speak to a whole range of advice firms, and we work with some really fantastic advisors. I think where we've seen advice firms that we kind of don't really want to work with are where they just see themselves as kind of salespeople for an investment package that they have on the books. Obviously, you know, you can make a lot of money doing that. You can run a very successful advice business. But I think, you know, with these kind of technologies, you're going to get led into trouble. And you're probably going to find, you know, that you're going to start making the wrong decisions about adopting this kind of technology if you do it with that in mind. I think genuinely approaching things like the customer's in the room, like you are actually trying to find the best outcome for the customer. That's always how we've approached our kind of, I guess, regulatory duties, but also just how we look at the technology. And, you know, it's not that we never make mistakes, but I think that you're much more likely to be guided in the right direction in terms of, you know, producing something that you know, has the right motives at its heart and produces the right outcomes for customers. I do think that the technology, we kind of have to learn from previous, I guess, sort of technological breakthroughs. I really think that there was an attitude with the kind of rise of social media that because the technology we're playing with these days, it wasn't like, you know, the 20th century where we were playing around with uranium and you know, atomic physics and things like that, that, you know, the harms of those things were kind of very obvious. And there was a sense that, you know, it's people putting, you know, posts up on a social network, you know, what harm could it do? Well, you know, I think we've seen that actually it comes back to the idea that we're quite social creatures. There's a lot about our societies that we maybe don't fully understand how it works. And I think we do have to, there should be an onus, particularly on the large companies, to think about the consequences of the technology they put out, rather than just saying, you know, here's something, you know, that's an alloy good because it's a technological breakthrough, go and have fun with it. I think there should be pressure on those companies to think about things. And I think the right way to do that is genuinely having kind of user perspectives at the heart of all your technical decision making.
Awesome. Cheers, Mike. You want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. Slight tongue-in-cheek way to talk about ethics, but you know, every time that I've been working somewhere and you go down to the pub and you tell someone where you work, there's always that one tongue-in-cheek question that they'll ask you. So, hey, I'm at Skyscanner, and they say, can I have a free flight? And hey, I'm at Monzo Bank, and they're like, can you send me some money? And now I say, hey, like I'm working on AI agents, and they say, are you gonna put me out of a job? Right? And it's like, but that's kind of the point, right? Is to automate away human labor. So I think that's kind of like the most profound question when it comes to the ethics of this technology, is the fact that now there are CEOs out there saying we've stopped hiring in this space completely, and we're just going to wait for our current employees to leave. And so I think this goes beyond the scope of one company or one industry, but clearly this technology is coming in. It's going to be amazing and it's going to be great. But just like with any technology, if it gets adopted super quickly, there's going to need to be the sort of safety nets in place for the people who are currently relying on their livelihood relies on doing these boring, manual, repetitive tasks. So I, do hope for a great future for all of these sorts of people. In fact, I do hope that the coming of this technology helps them to have more interesting jobs and more interesting lives and so on. But I do think that and to my earlier point, this technology gives more access to customers and actually widens the scope of what we can achieve as a society. But like ultimately, there's never been a technology that so severely impacts large elements of society, particularly in the customer support domain. It's not even uniform geographically. So a lot of companies today, they'll be trying to scale their operations, and they will do their best, say, to do so within the UK, and then realize that it's not financially viable for them, so they will go elsewhere to hire outsourced firms of customer support agents. And that's one way that they try to scale their operations at a lower cost, but they do so by hiring people, say, in Romania, South Africa, Eastern Europe, Asia. And so the people who will be impacted by this automation won't necessarily be the people in this room or the people in this country. So I think that's kind of a very important one to keep an eye on, is that as this technology comes, we need to reshape the industry and keep it as welcoming and as inclusive as possible. Ultimately, the world doesn't have enough software yet, in my view. There's still too many boring buttons that I need to click everywhere. So I think there's still a lot of software that needs to be built. It's just one to always remind your local politicians about, that the workforce that is going to be automated away needs to have access to the education to become contributors to this technology rather than just people who've lost out from it.
Cool. Cheers, Neal. Neal, is anything you want to add? Or no?
I mean, just generally, I think as a note, because you were saying that we will fundamentally change the way. We wrote an article recently, and essentially the tagline was, in 2030, there might be a CEO sitting in this room that's just minted a unicorn and that's speaking to his team. And we actually said the chief customer officer is Gradient Labs, the chief product officer is Lovable, the chief technology officer is Cogna. This is sort of, to think about it a bit in a crazy way, there might be a CEO that is managing his team of agents and is still able to build a massive business with sort of a very productive agentic workforce. So that's just the future thinking.
Cool. Cheers, Niels. Right, so time flies when you're having fun. I think that's all we've got time for today. So a round of applause for the panel. And I'll hand back to Vivek.
And yeah, just to finish up with, I like the way Neal put it earlier, like the way we see AI agents, we're very excited about them, but we see them as a paradigm shift. I think we've all really appreciated, enjoyed, and got excited and inspired by what we've seen with LLMs to date. I think this is now the next shift up, the next level up of where we can take this technology. And I think that's going to have huge ramifications for the world of financial advice, for the roles of financial advisors, and for a lot of the kind of work we're doing here in the room. So thank you very much for attending, and hope to see you at the next one. Cheers.